Well, salary arbitration numbers were submitted by both the Detroit Tigers and Tarik Skubal, and the gap between those two numbers is the largest in arbitration history, as this situation just continues to get grimmer.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, January 9th, 2026. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off on Friday, today, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We got a lot to get to today, so we are going to jump right into it. At the end of the show, we'll talk about John Heyman's comments on Tarik Skubal's trade market. We're going to talk Birch Smith, the newest addition of the Detroit Tigers organization. We'll talk about some comments that AJ Hinch made to 97 Won the Ticket. But we're going to start off with the biggest news of the week, of the day, of the year, probably so far in the calendar year of 2026. And that is the arbitration results. Really quickly, let's go through everybody else that's not Tarik Skubal first, okay? Matt Vierling, Jake Rogers, and Bo Brisky, they got one-year deals to avoid arbitration back in November, okay? Matt Vierling, $3.25 mil, Jake Rogers, $3.05 mil, Bo Brisky, $1.15 mil, okay? So they're all under a contract for 2026 and don't have to go to arbitration. So there was 11 ARB-eligible players going into the offseason. That's 3 removed before the non-tender deadline back in the fall. That left 8 for this deadline, Thursday's deadline of the arbitration number submission deadline. Like you can still sign them after. We'll talk about that in a second. 7 of the 8 got one-year deals to avoid arbitration. That is Casey Mize, Riley Greene, Spencer Torkelson, Zach McKinstry, Will Vest, Gary Carpenter, and Tyler Holton. Casey Mize is going to make $6.15 mil. Riley Greene will make $5. Torkelson a little bit over $4. Zach McKinstry $4.2. Will Vest $3.97. Gary Carpenter $3.27. And Tyler Holton $1.57. So, don't really have too much to say about everybody else. I'm glad that we're not taking a bunch of people to arbitration. I don't like going to arbitration. Nobody likes going to arbitration. The Tigers have gone to ARB one time since, 2000, 2001, and it was Michael Fulmer back before COVID. So it's not something that anybody enjoys. The numbers are also, I always see some people that are like, wow, why is Zach McKinstry making more than like Spencer Torkelson and like Gary Carpenter or whatever? It's not purely just like your production. That's obviously the biggest part of it, but also like what year you are matters, because your salary goes up presumably every year in arbitration. So like Casey Mize, for instance, is making the most because he's in his last year of arbitration. So he's just gone through the system the most and his salary is bumped up every year. Okay, cool. Let's get to what you actually want to talk about. That is Tarik Skubal submitted his salary arbitration number at $32 million, $31 million, $32 million. The Detroit Tigers number was $19 million. That gap is the biggest in the history of arbitration. There has never been that 13 mil, so 32 versus 19, comfortably. It's not even really actually particularly close in any way, shape, or form. Comfortably the largest gap in the history of the arbitration process. Now, there's a lot of different angles here. I want to start with, what do I want to start with? I want to start with file and trial because it's complete fabrication, okay? file and trial is a lot of teams, most teams these days for sure, are file and trial. And what that means is that if you don't, the team has like a rule, a self-imposed rule, not an actual rule, where they say that they will not go to, or they will not sign a one-year deal for a player after that deadline. This year, it's on January 8th, right? For arbitration eligible players. It's literally just to put pressure on players and agents to accept the deals that they offer, because then there's no more negotiations and you can't like negotiate right up to arbitration and like squeak out a deal at the last second. It's just a way to apply pressure to the players to accept their deals. So that's fine. Like I'm not saying that in like a bad way. Okay, that most teams do it. It is what it is. It's a negotiation tactic. We can call it what it is. They can offer deals after today. This is not like some hard set, like, you know, you're literally not allowed to. No, it's made up. It's fabricated. It's like, I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble or like say, you know, everything's real, I guess. But you get my point. Like this is, it is completely made up. And so the interesting part of this is I personally, and this is not necessarily how things are run, okay, as we know, I cannot fathom that Tarik Skubal is going to fall under the file and trial traditional Tigers rule. I cannot imagine, like, there's exceptions to every rule. We can call it what it is. No player is going to be like, oh, well, like, you let it go with him. So they signed Casey Mize after this deadline. But the way that they, like, justified that in the eyes of file and trial was to make there's an option. So it's not technically a one-year deal because there's an option for year number 2, even though they declined it. So you know what I mean? Like there's so much like nuance and nitty gritty and like politicking with this stuff. The reason I bring that up is because I think it would be an astronomical mistake to take this man to arbitration. I think it would be an absolute joke, to be honest with you. I'm not even sure I can actually articulate in a PG way how absurd I think it would be if the Tigers actually, with the best pitcher in baseball, objectively top 2, whatever your opinion of Paul Skeens is, whatever, one of the best players in the entire sport, back-to-back Cy Young winner, in the last 2 years. It's not like he was a back-to-back Cy Young winner 10 years ago. He's currently in his prime. In the last year of team control, he is a free agent in 8 months, 9 months. You cannot, with your most valuable asset, go and stand in court in front of an arbitrator and talk about how he doesn't deserve as much money as he thinks he does in front of his face. That is the worst possible business move I can fathom. 19 mil. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the prices that both of them picked, why they both picked them. There's at least like semblance of logic on both sides, but the gap is obviously huge. And if there is no deal done before then, I mean, then we're talking about going to arbitration, which side's going to win, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we'll talk about that a little bit more right after this. First, though, going to talk to you about our friends over at Rocket Money. Tarik Skubal might be needing some Rocket Money soon after his big deal. Let's be real, managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to lose control, to be honest. And who has time to track every single transaction and hunt down every hidden fee? Well, that's where Rocket Money comes in. The personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I told you earlier this week, I was shocked when I signed up for Rocket Money and found out that I've been paying for 2 Amazon Prime subscriptions for quite some time, like an idiot that I am. So it's time to save money. It saved me money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon and let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day and that make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Now, if you're a really big fan, you can be a part of the Everydayers Club. Go to LockedOnPodcastNetwork.com/Everydayers Club, and you can get ad-free versions of the show, more content, and you can even be a part of the Everydayer Club Discord server with a lot of the loyal listeners, myself, etc., all in there. It is a cool feature and a good time. Not so good of a time would be arbitration for Tarik Skubal. It was a weak transition at best, but I'll take it. I just, as I said before the break, I really don't think this is a very good business move whatsoever. I think that this front office cares a lot about its appearance and reputation amongst players, and you're already taking a huge hit in that regard by just not paying him what he is worth and letting him walk in free agency, which I certainly think is what's going to happen. If they prove me wrong, we will pop bottles of champagne on this show, okay? I will literally douse myself in champagne if they extend him in front of this very camera in this room. It's not going to happen, though. So you're already taking a hit in that regard in like, okay, like you can actually be too good to play for the Tigers. That's kind of like what's a PG way? It's kind of cruddy. I don't know. You know what I mean? Now you also can have the reputation, if you will, of, well, if you're arbitration eligible, they're not afraid to go over 10 mil under your asking price. Now, there is some nuance to that. Obviously, if Skubal walked up and was like, give me $3 billion, then like, okay, you can't just match anything he throws out there. I understand that. The numbers that they picked were very intentional. The Tigers number was very, very intentional. Skubal's, I think him and Scott Boras were just kind of trying to go kind of as high as reasonably possible. But the Tigers at 19 million would have been either tied with or more than, depending on exactly, how many thousands of dollars or whatever were attached onto it, the highest paid starting pitcher ever in arbitration. So like, it's a lot of money. I'm not going to try to like sell you or pretend that the Tigers like offered him $2 million and this being 13 mil is like some complete, I don't know, albatross or whatever. It's not great. And I side with Skubal in this, but it's not like they offered him nothing. He still would have been one of, if not the highest paid starting pitcher in arbitration history. Now, the reason why it still pisses me off is Skubal is in a very, and Jeff Passan wrote about this, Evan Petzold wrote about this. He was in a unique position where he kind of has all the leverage in this situation because he is, because he's just so blatantly at his peak and doesn't have a long-term contract, which you look throughout the history of baseball, I don't want to say most, but an awful lot of players that are this good and this much better than their peers get extended by the teams they're on or traded to teams who then extend them, right? Juan Soto made 31 mil in his last year of ARB before getting his big contract. Skubal wants 32. So Soto kind of set the precedent. Now, it hasn't been done for starting pitchers, and that's where the big decision for the arbitrator is going to have to come in from, because the Tigers can just say, look, we don't actually dislike Skubal or think that he's not worth 32 mil, but the price that we had would make him the highest paid starting pitcher in arbitration history. That's the angle they're going to play. All of this to me screams we're saving money and we're not re-signing him. And that's the part that upsets me. We can do the mental gymnastics and justify the number they picked until we're blue in the face. I just spent the last couple of minutes doing so, right? I don't care about anything I just said. Great thing to say when you have the job that I do, I guess. But I don't care. I do not care whatsoever. If you actually let me ask it like this. Is this the motion that a team that actually is serious about re-signing a player of that caliber, is this the actions that they take? No, it's not. This is the action of an organization that is trying to get the best pitcher in baseball for as little money as they possibly can, and then not bringing him back next season. That is what all of this screams at a piercing octave in my ears. Now, I'm not very intelligent. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. If I am wrong, again, we will literally pop champagne on air. That's how I, in my dumb brain, read this situation. Skubal's obviously worth $32 million next year. It's a one-year deal. This isn't even like, you're setting his AAV for the next 15 years. No, this is a one-year deal, dude. And you're telling me you couldn't have broke 20 mil? You gave Alex Cobb 15 a year ago. This is absurd. I guess my biggest point is it's just we're going out sad. We're going. This is so sad how all of this is unfolding. It's sad. You go through a rebuild to get players of this caliber, and then you bring in a new Pobo, a new president of baseball operations, that in his introductory press conference says the goal of the organization is to retain good players. We get through the rebuild, we make the playoffs, we have one of the best players in all of baseball, and it just looks like there is zero intention to retain him. Now, it takes two to tango, okay? If Skubal behind closed doors is not legitimately interested in coming back or wants to play the free agent market no matter what, then there's nothing you can do about that. But this is a one-year deal where you have team control. Literally, he cannot play anywhere else. Literally. You couldn't have... You're done signing free agents. I mean, prove me wrong. You can go out and sign Bichette or Bregman in January. I don't think that's happening. I don't think anybody listening to this thinks that's happening. Who are you saving the money for? And I think half of you just said Chris Ilitch, which we won't go into. But like I said, there is reasoning behind the numbers that the Tigers picked. And as I said in segment one, they can still just offer him a deal. And now their reputation again, they maybe players are like, oh, you're not really a file and trial club because you didn't, whatever. We're talking about one of the best players in all of baseball. I don't know. I feel like this was word vomit. I'm not even sure I articulated everything I really wanted to. I feel like time's flying by too. This is like the quickest episode ever. I have so many more points I could continue to make, but for the sake of trying to move on and talk about anything else, we can put a bow on it. I just you're walking a tightrope, really, or at least I am in this moment. Like I can, they might not even go to arbitration. They might figure out a deal out, before then, and they might just say file and trial doesn't apply to the best pitcher in baseball. Whatever, grow up, and they just figure something out. I don't know, but I mean, who would win that? If it was pre-Juan Soto, I probably honestly would have told you the Tigers have a pretty decent chance of winning it. I'm not sure they do with Boris in Skubal's corner and with the president set now that an arbitration-eligible player can make over 30 mil. I think I would lean towards Skubal. So, like, I guess, again, like, what's even the point? Why even do this? Your best asset is in a walk year. And I just feel like if you had any real intention of retaining him, you wouldn't go to arbitration with him 10 months before he's a free agent. But what do I know, man? Maybe I'm just completely talking out of my back, and I don't know. Okay. Got a few more things I would like to discuss. We'll see how much time we have. We'll do that right after this. First, though, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. You open your profit boost pack first thing on game day, and you see what boosts you want to apply. The boosts give you more juice on bets you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new or that you don't want to. So you make your picks, then apply your profit boosts to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all so much for tuning in. I'm trying to think if I have any closing thoughts. We could just save everything else. Like, this is obviously all. Maybe we just scrap the rest and just kind of like finish, this whole thing and get it all out there. The Tigers in this situation, I don't view them as like, wow, they're being so unbelievably cheap, and I don't know, maybe I kind of do. I don't even know anymore. This is, I cannot express enough how much of a mistake I think it is to go to arbitration with him. Screw file and trial. Just grow up. Like, this is... But then again, like, if you have no interest in re-signing him, the price tag, and you're not going to match it. You're not even going to come anywhere close to it. And if this season is an indication, this right here that we're talking about, then you're not going to come close to it. Because a team that was seriously interested in retaining him would have gone, well, we're not going to do 32 because we're not just going to bend the knee to everything you say. However, 25, 27, whatever, I'm not in those rooms, still makes you the highest paid arbitration pitcher of all time. Or arbitration eligible single year pitcher of all time. Whatever. You get what I'm trying to say. You'd be making more than the richest arbitration starting pitcher of all time. And we don't go to arbitration. And we still negotiate throughout the year with, like, whatever. This is just such a wide gap that I cannot fathom the Tigers being like, well, we're going to penny pinch a little bit here and not come close to you. But then 3 months from now, we'll give you $400 million. In what universe? So then you bring up the trade possibility. I mean, who knows? Like John Heyman, I guess we can talk about that. John Heyman said that the Tigers are still getting calls on Tarik Skubal. Obviously, duh. And that they have not countered any of them. Okay, that makes it sound like they have a super high asking price, and nobody has come even close to matching that. He even said that the Yankees at one point kicked the tires on Skubal and got the impression that it would cost like half their team, is the quote he said from the source he has in the Yankees organization. So I don't think he's going anywhere. I think that they are just like, you know what? Maybe that's what this kind of screams. I mean, truly, maybe this the epitome of this entire situation is kind of just, well, we're not going to give him anything close to his asking price. Not now, Apple. Okay. We're not going to give him anything close to his asking price for his full contract next offseason. And we also aren't going to trade him because no one's actually willing to give us what we think a trade for Skubal would be worth. So we're just going to try to get him for as cheap as possible for the last season and see what happens. That is so lame if that's true. And maybe it's not. Again, maybe I'm just like completely an idiot and that I'm reading this completely wrong. That has happened many of times. It'll happen plenty more times. But golly, if they just pretended, if they just could pretend like there was a chance, I think it would go a long way. If they even just like threw their hat in the ring and were like, yeah, we might keep Skubal. No one thinks that. Not a soul in the Tigers fan base thinks he's staying. Not a soul in the front office thinks he's staying. Not a single beat writer in the city of Detroit thinks he's staying. Not a single national beat writer thinks he's staying. There might not be a human being in America that actually thinks Tarik Skubal will be on the Tigers in 2027. And it's all because of the actions of the organization he is presently in. And his own doing of having Scott Boras being his agent. Those two things together, and here we are. I don't know. I can't tell if I just spewed absolute gibberish for half an hour and if any of that made any sense or if it was actually good radio. So I apologize really either way. We will be back on Monday, a little bit more structured. We'll talk about the comments AJ Hinch made on 97.1. We will talk about more rumors. We will also then talk about the newest Birch Smith, the newest Tigers minor league reliever that probably will never pitch for the Detroit Tigers. But he got an invite to spring. So we got to talk about it. I wanted the arbitration thing to only be like the first 10 or 15 minutes of the show, and then I just completely got carried away. So we'll end with this. This does not mean that he's guaranteed to go to arbitration. An important thing to remember. Okay. I am a dramatic nutcase. Okay. I sit here and scream and talk with my hands. I get that from my mother. Okay. The talk with my hands part, I'm not trying to imply that my mom screams, but I sit here and flail around and overreact to every little detail every day and whatnot. That doesn't mean you have to. Okay. I'm not trying to like fearmonger. It's really just as simple as that is how I view what is happening. And I've been wrong plenty. And my opinion really doesn't mean a whole lot. And that's like I don't really care about that. This is just how I have viewed this situation unfolding, and I think it is just for an organization that has been so keen on their reputation amongst like the player pool, and it just feels like the last year they have handled this with zero legitimate intention of retaining him. And I don't know how that can possibly be viewed as a positive. Even if they don't like, I'm just going to start talking in circles. We'll see what happens. Okay. We'll see what happens. I think ultimately, I I still stand by like I really can't. I think it would be so dumb to go to ARB that I hope they don't. I'm gonna hold on to that thought with dear life. Um, but if they do, I mean I would give it to Skubal. You don't think Tarik Skubal's worth $20 million next year? Like I know there's a little bit more nuance with it with arbitration and everything, but I don't know. Like I said, all of that aside in your individual opinion of Skubal and what he is worth and the big contract and the trade and all of that aside, just looking at the Tigers' actions in a vacuum, it just looks like there's no way he's going to be here long term. And if that's the case, what are we even doing? We'll see. Hope I'm wrong. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we will, of course, be back on Monday. We'll get a little bit more structure in here. Okay. A little bit more actual. This will actually be like accurate. This, if you're watching on YouTube, and it won't just be, me talking about Skubal the whole time. But I really, I don't feel bad about it. Like that's all anyone's talking about, all anyone's going to be talking about. And that might even still be the case on Monday. All right. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. I appreciate you all greatly for putting up with me. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. We'll be back on Monday, baby. Go Tigers.